We've got to talk about healthcare today. Great to be back from the 4th of July holiday. And during that holiday, Donald Trump pretty casually called for, hey, if we can't pass something to replace the Affordable Care Act with, let's just repeal Obamacare and figure out the rest later, which is effectively saying I'm indifferent to 32 million people losing their health insurance. Do not allow this to be anything but a depraved and outrageous suggestion from the president. Obamacare passed in 2010. Real problems with Obamacare, including that it's actually pretty damn conservative. Anything that says, hey, here's tens of millions of new customers for for-profit insurance companies, not exactly a liberal panacea. Republicans during President Obama's presidency voted dozens of times in the House to try to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Of course, they knew, or at least if they had any connection to reality, they should have known there was no chance that they were actually going to succeed in repealing the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump ran on repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. And what we've seen so far since January 20th of 2017 is the American Health Care Act attempt number one, absolute and total disaster, estimated 24 million people were going to lose health coverage. The American Health Care Act attempt number two, the House version, would have led to 23 million people losing their health insurance. The latest Senate version, as scored by the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, would have led to 22 million people losing their health insurance. Mitch McConnell last week determined to get a vote before the July 4th recess. Didn't happen. Major failure. Many Republicans not happy with the bill and said, no, we're not on board with it. And as I said last week, there are only Republicans to blame for the fact that they haven't passed something so far. So what does Donald Trump do over the 4th of July weekend? He tweets, hey, if we can't figure out how to replace this thing, let's just repeal Obamacare and figure out the rest later. Donald Trump tweeting on his Twitter account, if Republican senators are unable to pass what they are working on now, they should immediately repeal and then replace at a later date. This will lead to 32 million people losing their insurance. Full stop. I don't need to qualify it. I don't need to say anything else about it. Now, where do I get the number 32 million people? Let's put that on record, just so you don't think I'm making this up. The Congressional Budget Office did an analysis. One of those times that Republicans floated the idea of merely repealing the Affordable Care Act, they determined that 32 million people, nearly 10% of our country's population, would lose coverage by 2026. 19 million of them would lose Medicaid coverage. People already die because they don't have health care. And way more people are going to die from lack of care if Obamacare is repealed and replaced with the AHCA. Even more people will die if you just repeal Obamacare. What do you have left if you just repeal Obamacare? Nothing.
Well, I think this strategy is a sly way to get Democrats on board, because you can repeal Obamacare probably with just the Republicans in the House and the Senate. You can appeal to the people on the far right and not really have to grab the moderates as well. And then when there's that interim phase while Obamacare is phasing out slowly, then Democrats may be guilted into joining on board and passing something similar to what they have now, which is the American Health Care Act.
It's possible, but the timing of that has to be so perfect for Republicans to not get crushed in 2018 and or 2020. I mean, you're basically threading a needle where you're saying we've got to start causing just enough misery that Democrats might agree to our terms, but not so much that Republican voters hold us accountable. So it's certainly possible, but it would require such incredible timing to do that. And I cannot possibly overstate the perversion and the moral corruption of this suggestion, particularly from the guy who campaigned on creating a, quote, beautiful replacement to Obamacare that was going to work for everyone. Less money, no one uninsured, better care. The suggestion now is just get rid of Obamacare, period. And the way things are going, there might never be a replacement, especially if you get Obamacare out of the way first, and then Republicans, Pat, might say, let's just blame Democrats for what's going on because, hey, Obamacare was bad and we repealed it, and that was our campaign promise and we did it. The fact that we haven't passed anything else, let's just blame that on Democrats, even though, again, it's Republicans that are preventing them from passing it so far.
Well, I think taking the coverage from 32 million people without any replacement option would play terribly for Republicans, right? And there's no chance they would be able to hold the House in 2018 if they did that.
I hope.
So that might be good for Democrats, but we don't sit here and say, well, that would be good overall politically for us, so just screw the people off their health insurance, as the right is doing.
Not only that, I talk about the reversible or the meaningless actions that Donald Trump has taken, firing certain departments from the White House, people resigning, whatever. We've talked about that. Some of the meaningless symbolic executive orders. We've talked about that. This would not be one of them, right? To the extent that Donald Trump is supportive of Republicans in the House and Senate saying just a straight up repeal of Obamacare, that would not be one of the reversible actions of Donald Trump and Republicans. If you care about net neutrality, consider this an attack on net neutrality, because if you're sick and you've got no health care, that becomes your priority, not activating around net neutrality. If you care about education, consider this suggestion from Donald Trump an attack on education, because if you're sick and have no health care, it's hard to be working on education. If you care about the environment, consider this suggestion an attack on the environment, because if you're sick and have no health care, that is your priority day to day, not the environment. These are straight up liars. Democrats and Republicans are the same on many issues, and when they are, I call them out for it. Not here, not this one. They said, the Republicans said, this isn't about political points from just repealing Obamacare. We want to replace Obamacare with something that works for everyone. Then why is anyone talking about a straight repeal as a possible good idea? It is disgusting. Do not allow this to be normalized. And by the way, whoismyrepresentative.com, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're represented by a Democrat or a Republican, this is an issue where you have to make your voice heard, and we're going to be covering this until we have some kind of resolution on it.